Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is someone that you guys and I absolutely love. She's making her 5th or 6th appearance to talk about toxic workplaces. She and I are going to discuss how you can identify a toxic workplace and steps you can take to make things better. Please help me welcome Jenn DeBeers. Jenn, oh my God, I am so excited to have you here with me today. And I have to say, before I even let you say a word, a couple things. So the first is, as most people know, or a lot of people know, I'm getting ready to have surgery. This will air after that happens, but I had canceled all recordings until the end of March, except for you and Stacy B, because you are my faves, and I had to get you in. I had to spend some time with you before going under the knife. So Jenn, how the hell are you doing today?
I'm doing good. So I'm on the other end of surgery. I had my major shoulder surgery December 1st. So I'm kind of on this end of because we had talked about recording it then, and it was just like my
Yes.
surgery and then your surgery. And we're like, okay, we need to just go ahead and schedule this and get it done. So yeah, things are healing and we're progressing. So
Good. Well, you look amazing. For those of you who can't see Jenn, her hair looks better than ever. It is long and luscious and beautiful and not frizzy,
no.
which most people on the East Coast experience. So your hair is looking great. You're feeling pretty good. We're going to talk about those some less good times, maybe that you've experienced recently. So, we're going to talk about something that a lot of people don't even think about as a relationship quite often, and they don't think about how negatively it can affect them. And that is work environments and a toxic work environment. So, whether it's coworkers or a boss or all of the above that are causing issues in your work life, and how damaging that can be, and kind of what you need to do to get through that. So, I'm going to toss it over to you, Jenn, to kind of share, you know, what it was like for you realizing that you were in a toxic work environment, and how that felt when you kind of had that realization.
Yeah, I think with anything, even, you don't realize like how far you're in it because you're in it every single day. And it's not like all of a sudden somebody just like turns on a switch, like, a light switch, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden this is toxic work environment. Like, it's not like that. It's like this slow cycle or slow, slip, I guess. And I had left my position and gone to go run a drone light show company that was still owned by the same person that owned the agency I worked for. And everything was great. Like, we had a really good team, and like we were working crazy hours, which, is normal in the event world, as you know. But like, we were a family. Like, we were really tight knit, and the culture was a family. Like, it was good. Like, we all had each other's backs, and like it was a great work environment. And then we we brought in a leadership person who does not operate that way. And at first it was kind of like there was a lot of things that were going on at this time as well. Like, our creative director was killed in a car accident. And so that like was a huge blow to our team, because like we only had like 6 people. Like, we were a very small company. So that was a huge blow to us. And then, our general manager decided to put in his notice. So like there was just a lot of turmoil to begin with. And it was like, at the time, I was just trying to survive. Like, I was just trying to like, hey guys, we have all these events that are coming up. Like, it was right around the corner for July 4th, which is like, you know, the mecca pretty much for our industry. And I was just trying to like, hey, we just got to survive and get through this July 4th swing, and then like let's reconvene after that. And it was almost like, this person who saw that and saw their way in. And um one of the things I've learned is that, like, just because you have a title doesn't mean that you're a leader. And like, a title doesn't make you a leader. Like, it makes you a boss. And there's a huge difference between being a leader and being a boss. And I don't think, again, you need to be very self-aware of yourself. And a lot of people aren't. And they see the glitz and the glam of, like, this really cool title, and you know not knowing how to treat people or not caring about people. But yeah, I mean, like, for me, it took a while. Like, I was sick. Like, I was trying to contribute it to, like, okay, yeah, we've been traveling like crazy, and yes, I went through this whole grief thing with my coworker. Um, but like, I was sick. I mean, like, to the point where, like, full blown Crohn's flare sick, like, lost 20 pounds again, and, like, was again very sick. And I'm getting phone calls at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I started to, like, I was dreading looking at my phone. Like, every time a message would pop up or my phone would light up, like, I would have anxiety and, like, angst and turmoil. And, like, walking into a meeting and being like, I have no idea how this is going to go. Am I about to get cussed out again? Am I about to get screamed at again? Which happened a lot. And, you know, there's different levels of it. I think, when you're dealing with somebody who is a sociopath or a narcissist versus someone who maybe is just toxic. Like, you've got to, I think you do need to figure that out. And I think at first I was just like, you know what? Maybe we just need to learn to work better with this person. Let me try to communicate better. Cause, like, it was kind of coming back on me, like, oh, well, you're not communicating. I'm like, oh, okay. So, like, a lot of it was being blamed on me, like how my work ethic was and how I operated. So I'm like, okay, I'll change. Like, I want to do this for the team. Like, I believe in this company. Like, I like my job. And it was getting to the point where it was like nothing I could do was right. And it was like I was becoming the scapegoat for everything. And I was miserable, like, absolutely miserable. I've never once, like, in my entire life, woke up and been like, I hate my job. And I was at that point. And, it was making the decision. And I think everybody has to get to that point themselves. But, like, physically, I couldn't do it. I mean, I was sick, like, and that's because of my disease, that stress, exacerbates it or triggers it. And so, I can't work like that. Like, I would have put myself in the grave, literally. So, I think sometimes you can evaluate, like, how much are you willing to put up with? Like, can you go to HR? Like, can you go through the steps to rectify this? And I tried to, and it didn't. And I was just like, all right, I think my time is done. And it was hard because it was like, I put my heart and soul into this. Like, I saw this as my long-term career. I loved what we were doing. Uh, but and it was like, oh, look at how much work I did, and look at all the work that I did, and how much I helped this company get to where they are. But it wasn't the same company anymore. And, like, that was the biggest thing. I had to separate that, because it's still, like, even me being on site wasn't the same anymore. I was being treated very differently. So, like, I wasn't even enjoying the physical part of my job, which is one of the things I love. And that's part of the reason I love being in operations and production, because I get to build things and create things. And I wasn't even enjoying that anymore. And I think once you lose that, it's time for you to move on, because, like, I knew my attitude was then starting to bleed into the rest of the team, and that wasn't healthy for them either. So, I made the decision, started working on in September, is when I kind of made the decision I was going to leave and what that would look like. We didn't 100% know, but I do have some people that are amazing in my life that actually saw this and recognized it 2 months ahead of time and had already started working on a plan to bring me back in the production department at Red Peg. So like that was fantastic. But I didn't know at the time. So like I was out there, I was looking, I was like, all right, I gotta update my resume. Like I've gotta, start looking for jobs. And then I started a YouTube channel because I was like, I need some money. So like I went down that road. And so you know, I know we talk like I feel like the culture thing is like such a buzzword right now. And
Mhm.
I hate using that word, but like you do, like it can just take one person to like literally change that entire atmosphere from being like you literally had people that were willing to work 80 and 90 hours a week that like didn't complain that like to the point where I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's before 9 a.m. I don't work. Oh, it's after 5. Sorry. Nope. I'm not returning that email. I'm not answering my phone. I'm not returning that message." And I've never been that person, but I was just like, I don't care anymore. And that wasn't a good place to be in. So, uh, so yeah, so that's kind of that was my I would say first real experience working in an incredibly toxic environment. And I'm not saying that it was toxic for everyone, because there's still, majority of the people are still there, but it was toxic for me. And that relationship that I had with that person was obviously toxic. So,
You said a lot that I think we need to dive into, so I'm gonna try
okay.
to remember it all. I wanna start with just reiterating one of the points that you made. There is a huge difference between a leader and a boss or a manager.
Hmm.
And people in those positions would really um, be well to realize that
Yeah.
and to understand that leading is a whole different skill set, it's a different mindset. It takes a better person because
Yes.
almost anybody can manage, and send people here and there and tell them what to do and when to do it. So, for any people who are getting into management or leadership that are listening or watching, please take the time to develop your leadership skills. And the other thing that I've noticed a lot of times, and I'm interested to hear if this person did that, I think it's very frustrating when somebody comes in and doesn't take the time to learn the current structure and then immediately changes it. And we didn't plan this, but by looking at your face, I can tell that's what happened. And that has happened to me as well recently, where somebody came in and just literally did a 180 on how things were done without even taking the time to understand what was going on, why it was going on, what worked and what didn't. They just decided to change. And guess what? Now it's worse. So I would love to hear your experience with that and how that was for you knowing the company and understanding how things worked and how they were successful to seeing somebody march in and just change it.
Yeah. Well, I do want to touch real quick when you were making the comment about the managers and your leaders too. I think part of that's also a security thing. Like
Yes.
insecure people, like so being a leader, your job is to raise up other leaders. Like that is
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're mentoring and you're coaching people to lift them and bring them up with you.
Mhm.
Whereas I feel like a manager or a boss is, oh, I'm threatened because you're going to want my job. So
Right.
let me make sure I keep you down here
Mhm.
so you don't put me out of a job. Whereas
Right.
somebody who is a secure person who is a leader, it's like, hey, they're going to see, look at Jen. She had a team of 6 people, and look at how much they've grown, and they're all now leaders and managers.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, obviously, Jen did something right. So, like, we all, again, people don't understand that. We all rise together as opposed to
Yes.
it's like just that one person. So that's my view on it.
Totally
But yeah,
agree.
like when you're talking about, and don't get me wrong, like there were a lot of things that needed to change at this company. Like that was the main reason I was brought in is because it was
Mhm.
a disaster, especially in the operations department. And they had gone through so many different producers, and I
Mhm.
understand there was a lot of turmoil. And that was the reason I was brought in. And there were a lot of things that needed to be changed. But I also recognize that as when you come in as a new person and you try to change everything, people are, even if they're like, yeah, it needed to change, but because they've been doing it for so long, or maybe it was their idea, like they almost get defensive about it. And it's like, I don't care that it sucked. This was mine. And I don't, how dare you come in here and try and change things? So, like,
Mhm.
I was trying not to do that. And it was more like, okay, guys, like, I understand that we were doing it this way, but maybe let's look at it from this perspective. And maybe let's try it this way. Like, I was trying to do it that way,
Mhm.
and it was kind of like the same thing. Like, this person came in and he had had a couple conversations with me, like, oh my God, this is inefficient. We need to change this. And I'm like, I understand we do. 100% we do. Um, it, I think we need to sit down collectively and like start coming up with those ideas. And it was just like, again, we went through this like really busy season. So there's like all of a sudden when that came died down, it was like, oh, so I already made the plan. I already did this. We're doing this differently. This. And it was just like, wait. And you get protective over it. It's like,
Mhm.
well, yeah, but this is, how dare you come in as an outsider and you have no idea what's going on. And that was, again, when you have somebody who had never even been in the industry before, who didn't take the time to learn, like, that's frustrating. And, I tried to be that person of like, okay, yeah, I know events, but I don't know this technology and I don't know how you guys really run your shows. So, like, I need to understand this first so then I can be like, all right, well, let's make some suggestions this way and to change it. Um, so yeah, and I feel like a lot of companies do that. And it's almost like a catch 22 because it's like, you know, I understand why companies hire outside management, especially in leadership roles sometimes, because if you promote within sometimes, like you have, Susie who is like, well, we were just equals. And now all of a sudden Jen's my boss.
Right.
I'm not
Mhm.
listening to her because I know just as much as she does. So yeah, I understand bringing somebody from the outside, but then it's also kind of like, well, bro, you don't know anything. You're new. Like, you don't know anything. Like, why are you coming in here and trying to and literally change everything? Like, so I don't really know. There needs to be a better, I guess, balance about it. But yeah, it was definitely that situation.
I really think it's about building trust first
Yeah.
because, I went into a role years ago, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and a lot of stuff, like you said, a lot of stuff needed to be changed. I mean, it was a shit show. It really was a
Right.
shit show. But I also understood that if I come in here and just say, "This is a shit show. Here's everything that's gonna change," before these people even knew me and I had built trust and gotten buy-in from them, it wasn't gonna work. It wasn't gonna
Right.
succeed.
Yeah.
And so I spent that time, getting to know people, letting them get to know me, building that trust first so that then when I said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Well, now they wanna do it because they
Right.
trust you and they believe in you.
Yes, and they
And
know that you have their best interests at heart, except like, because when you come
yes.
in like a bull in a china shop and you're like, "You do that wrong, you do that wrong, you do this wrong, you do," even if you know you're doing it wrong, like, you get
Mhm.
defensive, like,
Right.
100%, like, "Who are you to come
Yeah,
in here and tell me I don't know you?" Like,
right. Like,
I
who do you
totally
think
get that.
you are? And I
Yeah.
think you hit the nail on the head, though. It boils down to a lack of confidence and a lack of belief, in themselves and the fear.
Mhm.
So they kinda know they can't come in and build that trust and build that buy-in because they got nothing,
Yeah.
they're not standing on anything to build that upon.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I didn't even mean to make that happen. So, for those of you watching
Does
or
mine do that?
only if you have a Mac on the new operating system.
Oh. Well, I have a Mac, but I don't
So
know if I have the newest operating
so you
system.
need to upgrade, but yeah, for those of you who are listening and not watching, the new Mac OS has new hand signals, and I just generated one with a thumbs up. So this big thumbs up came up on my screen, and it's very kind of weird if you're not expecting it. Anyway, yeah, I think it goes to those people being fearful and knowing they aren't bringing to the table what they need to get the buy-in and the trust. Now, For people who don't know you, I'll just say you can be very outspoken, but in a good way. I think you and I are really a lot alike in that way, in that we're the people that will stand up for the team and will say, "Hey, this isn't right. This isn't okay." Do you think that's why you got pegged
Oh,
as the one that had the toxic relationship with this individual? Is that how that came about?
yes, and I also think so, like, when he first came on board, like, he was like, "Oh, Jen, we're gonna get along great, like, we're really good friends, we're gonna work really well together, like, I'm here to help and support you," and I was like, "Alright, man, that's cool." Um, I think he realized that I couldn't be manipulated too, because like, early on, it was like, "Oh, well, what do you think about so and so?" And, like, we had other owners that were involved with the company who ended up selling their shares,
Mhm,
and I mean, I can't tell you, but, like, literally every person that was in leadership at that company, he had something not nice to say. Like, he was trying to get me to speak ill of them, and
mhm.
I wouldn't play the game. Like, I was like, "Nah, man, I like them." Like, "Yeah, man, he might be from Canada and live up in the woods or whatever, but the dude's smart as crap and he knows this industry more than better than anybody else." So, like, and I think once he realized that I couldn't be manipulated and I wasn't going to be like his lackey, then I
Mhm,
became the target. And it was like, all right, yep, she's got to go. Like,
mhm.
I think he saw me also as a threat to his position because I was actually supposed to have that job. And it was like we were going to split the company in between like BD and sales and
Mhm.
then the operation side of things. And I truly felt that that was part of it. It was like, oh well, she's been so spoken highly of, and that and came over from the other company that I don't because even to this day I'm not involved. He is still trying to get me fired from my current job.
Which has
Yes, like
nothing
even just as
to
recently as last week. Like, and I'm like, dude, why do you even care? Like, can you like
do.
I'm not even part of you guys anymore. Like, can you just like yeah.
I've
So,
I've never watched the movie Frozen, and don't hate on me for that, but let it go, dude, let it go.
yeah.
Here's what I think happened, because it's what I think happened to me, in a sense as well, and I'm gonna use a football analogy because 'cause
Okay.
we're football people,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, they may not, you'll be able to figure it out. So, Derek Carr,
Okay.
quarterback for the Raiders. He was their guy, and the thing about Derek outside of football is he's very passionate about Christ.
Mhm.
He is a leader just by nature,
Mhm.
and he led that team. Everybody on the team listened to him. Everybody on the team followed him.
Mhm.
Well, then Josh McDaniels came in as the coach. So I think Josh McDaniels got mad because nobody wanted to listen to him. Nobody wanted
Mm.
to follow him. They were going to follow Derek. And so I think you got Derek Card. Uh, Josh
Yeah.
had to get rid of Derek because he could never live up to that. He was never
Yeah.
gonna get the respect of people over Derek. He was never gonna have people listen to him
Yeah.
instead of Derek. And I think that's what happened to you, and that happened to me as well in my last position. We are leaders. We
Yeah.
are good at what we do, and people do listen to us because we care, because we show that we care. We teach, we accept constructive criticism. We want
Mhm.
others to learn. We want to be helpful, and people like that. And
Yeah.
so when the new manager came in at my old organization, I kind of felt the same thing because I was leading webinars and doing different things, and people were very receptive to me, and the person didn't like that too much. So
Mm.
I think you and I, were Derek Card. I want to ask though, while you were going through this and maybe either before you made the decision or knew that you had to get out, or while that was happening, you needed to have some outlets for yourself. You needed to have some ways that you could be happy. So, will you talk a little bit about what you did to find some respite away from that situation and try to not let it rule your entire life?
Yeah, I definitely can. I'm a it's interesting because I never really thought myself as a creative person, but like I'm looking back over my life, like I've always been I used to paint, I used to draw, like then I got into photography. And so like I know for me, I need a creative outlet. And I again wasn't really creating, I wasn't doing a lot. And so like I decided to start a YouTube channel as one, a source of monetary um income if I lost my job, and also as a creative outlet. And you know, it gave me balance again too, because like that was the thing, is that work literally was consuming my life. Like we're talking 12, 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And I needed I needed something for me and that wasn't work related as well. So I threw myself into that. And like I took like, or even, I mean, when I say I threw myself into it, like this is just Jen, but Jen does, this is how I operate. I throw myself into
Jen goes
things.
hard, people.
I
Jen
do.
goes hard.
So like I took a class and like, I got a coach on how to do this and, and whatnot. Cause I was like, if we're going to be successful, we're going to be successful. And it is like, it's becoming successful, and it's been an amazing experience, and I've really enjoyed it. And not that it was anything that I ever thought on my radar would be, but like, it's been a great outlet for me. And I would suggest to anybody, like I started reading again, cause I had like realized that I had stopped doing that. And I made a lot of commitments this year, especially mental health. And I've not always been the person that's like, oh, my mental health. And I feel like we never talked about it. And now it's like we talk about it all the time. And I'm not that person, but like, again, having that work life balance, because I've never had a traditional job in my entire life. So like, I don't understand how to have that balance, especially like I was traveling all the time. So it's like, how do you have that balance when
Right.
you're not home
Mhm.
either? So like that was part of my thing was, and I got a therapist, and I haven't been in therapy since I was a teenager. And, being able to have somebody to like bounce my ideas off of and talk to, or vent to, and like, hey, checking myself, because I'm a very self-aware person. I'm probably more so than I should be, because like I'll be like, oh, maybe should I have not said, like I analyze a lot of that stuff too. Um, but like being able to like kind of, okay, did I take that conversation out of context? And like that's what I was doing a lot too in this situation, was like, okay, am I being oversensitive? Am I being too, because like I started feeling like I was crazy because this person was making me feel that way. Like, oh no, 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 this is you. Like this is all you. And I'm like, wait, what? Huh? Um, so, I made a lot of goals, like to make sure that I stick to those. Like, okay, Jen, like your work time, like do not, if you do work over 40 hours, then you take a comp day.
Mhm.
And, like I'm really putting myself in that position now, because I felt like I was always having to prove myself, especially being a female
Right.
in a very male dominated industry.
Mhm.
And, again, my work ethic was being attacked. And so like I then was like working harder to be like, to prove to you, like, dude, I know what I'm doing. And I was hired for the right reason. And I was making myself crazy by doing that as well. Um, and, I had to take a step back a little bit and was like, I know what I bring to the table. Like, I was the fastest promoted person at my company, like
Mhm.
ever. So like I know I'm good at what I do, obviously. So like again, why am I allowing this person to affect my self-worth that much? So, again, work-life balance has been a big thing, especially, like, when you work from home too, because it's just so easy to just be like, "Oh, well, I'll just finish this one
Right.
spreadsheet." Like, there's no, like, hard stop because I like, "Oh, I gotta get my car to beat traffic." Like, "Yeah, dude, I got 20 feet to walk to the kitchen." Like, and, and being a person who is not married and doesn't have kids either, like, I could work until 11 o'clock at night
Right.
because I don't have the kids to feed and put to bed or pick up from school or, those kinds of things. So, you know, taking a self inventory and again, just knowing what your balance is, because my balance is very different than somebody else's because, like, not having, a family and children and stuff like that, obviously affects it. So I don't know if that answers your question. I feel like I kind of got on a tangent, but
No, it did, and I'm gonna veer off on a tangent real quick now, and I'm gonna ask you probably a very controversial question, because that's what we do here. You talked about being the person, who's single, no kids. I also have no kids. I do have a dog who I think counts, but um, do you ever feel like we, as those people with no kids, get shitted on sometimes in the workforce because, other people are granted kind of leniency in some areas because of their children, and then we don't get that same thing. Have you ever felt slighted by that?
um I'll be honest, I think my company does a pretty good job about that, because we actually have some women that are in our leadership roles that don't have children. So
Mhm,
it's funny, we have this, we call it WAR, but it's Women of Red Peg, and, it's like we
mhm,
actually met for the first time of the year last week, and that was actually one of the topics is, they were excited that we finally have women in leadership that
mhm,
actually have kids because a lot of them had it, and it was like they felt like it was being portrayed as like you can't be successful and
right,
hold a leadership type position if you have children.
mhm,
Um, I think maybe I internalize it maybe a little bit more, um, where like I feel like I always have to justify like, oh, I have a PT appointment at 4 p.m. today. So like I do have to knock off work a little bit early. And I always feel like I have to justify that and be like, oh, but don't worry, I'll be back online later if you need me. Whereas like I've got coworkers who are like, yeah, man, I gotta leave at 3:30 to go pick up my kids. And everybody's like, all right, cool.
right, like,
You
yay.
know, yeah. So like I feel like sometimes, and I don't know if this is just me internalizing it or if it's maybe that has been, projected to me from our company, but that's kind of where I feel it a little bit more is like when I have to do personal things, if it's not related to because I don't have
Yes.
kids, like it's like,
Mhm,
well, really, did you really have to have a doctor's appointment at 10 o'clock in the morning? Like,
yes.
yeah, dude, I did. Like, I actually have to schedule a mammogram for the first time in my life because I just turned 40. So, like, yeah, dude, and I'm gonna do that in the middle of the day too. So,
Right, that's happening. I don't think it's just you because I agree with you. I have felt that way as well in that, "Oh, I have to go do this appointment," but I'll work late. Don't
yeah,
worry. And yeah, you kinda don't really see that on the other side. People with kids, we are not attacking you. We are
no,
not saying anything bad about those of you who have kids. We just don't, and I wanted to discuss that. One of the things that you mentioned previously in your tangent that wasn't really a tangent is, you were saying like you kind of started to feel crazy and you were questioning yourself, and we like to call that gaslighting.
yes, we do.
So, a lot of what you mentioned though really does resemble an abusive relationship because
Hmm.
you've got gaslighting
Yep.
and then you've got anxiety. You talked about having some anxiety whenever your phone would ding or a message would come through. You had that anxiety. You had to go get a therapist.
Hmm.
You stopped doing a lot of the things that you loved. So you stopped reading. Um, all those are signs of an abusive relationship. And
Yep.
we don't think as of work as an abusive relationship. So did you realize at some point that this really was not just a toxic place, but an abusive relationship? And what did that feel like to be in that situation where it's like, man, I didn't even enter into like a personal relationship with you, and now I'm dealing with all this trauma and these symptoms from it.
Yeah, I think so, for people that I guess haven't listened before, I did have a very traumatic childhood. I grew up with an alcoholic, emotionally abusive, physically and sexually abusive father. So there was all of that. And he was also a narcissist and a sociopath. Um, so I think for me, I felt like I recognized it
Mhm.
sooner than I probably would have had I not had that experience and had that, like, again, therapy and work that I did, like, to recognize that and the gaslighting and that kind of thing. Cause like that's literally what I grew up in, yes, that's exactly the gaslighting and the manipulation and making you
Right.
feel like it was, well, if you hadn't have said that, I wouldn't have flipped my ish on you and I wouldn't be calling you at 6 o'clock in the morning because you didn't know how to do this correctly. Like, yeah. Um, I think my turning point was, so I had a girl that reported to me that and absolutely adore her. And she was new in the industry, a greenie. And so,
Mhm.
like, I took her under my wing and I'm teaching her all the things and I'm mentoring her. And, like, she was very sensitive to this. And she was also experiencing this because she was my person. Like, she was a casualty to all of this, actually, and it breaks my heart because they literally fired her,
Mm.
sh without me knowing. They called her into a meeting and basically let her go without me knowing, and I was like, "So this is not how this is supposed to work at all."
Right.
And that's kinda when I was like, "Alright, there's nothing, we can't do anything to salvage this. There's nothing that we can do," because, like, she and I had kinda made a pact, and we had a mentor at the time too, or I had a mentor that was kind of taking her under her
Mhm.
wing because, like, she knew the situation. I was very, very upfront with her, about it, and, we had kind of come up with a plan of, like, you know what, like, a person like this isn't going to last long. They always, like, again, my father never stayed at a job very long because,
Right.
the lies and all that gets
They
exposed.
catch up, right.
So, like, we were like, all right, we got this. We're going to wait it out, like, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, they fired her. And that's when I made the decision. I was like, yeah, no, I can't. There's no, I said, especially as sick as I was getting too, like, I was like, I can't do this at the cost of my health anymore. And that was where I made the decision. Probably if I didn't have Crohn's, I might have stuck it out a little bit longer, um, because I'm stubborn and I wanted to. And again, it was my baby. Like, I was helping build this company,
Mhm.
and so it was definitely that decision or that circumstance that made me, make the decision that I was like, I can't salvage this, and this isn't worth it at the cost of my health, of
Mhm.
my personal relationships in my life. And, because again, when you're miserable, you don't turn it on and off. Like, okay, yeah, I'm miserable during the day at work, but, like, I can't just
Right.
turn that off and then, like, at home be like, oh wait, everything's great. Like,
"No, I'm
no, I
fine."
was bringing all of that back home too. So, like, I was miserable and angry and short tempered, and, like, I wasn't sleeping. So of course, you know how we all get when we don't sleep very well. I wasn't eating because I was sick. So, like, it affected everything, not just, and I think we don't realize that too. Like, our work, we spend so much time at work, like,
Right.
majority of our day. Like, yeah, we need to have a good work environment, and you need to have a place where you feel comfortable and that you can grow and thrive. And if you're not in that anymore, like, I'm not saying quit your job right now, like, and I wasn't at that point where, all right, I can just quit and I can start looking for a job. Like, I knew that, especially with medical and stuff, like, I can't not have
Right.
insurance and all of that
Right.
because of everything. And knowing that I was going to have a surgery coming up and all of that. But, like, so I started looking, like, it was, you know, and I did research on this, and people don't stay at jobs for the salaries anymore. They stay at their jobs because of the culture and the people.
Mhm.
And that really hit me. Like, I was like, yeah, yeah, you're 100% right. Cause I had no problem working 80 plus hours a week for you for the salary that I was making when we had a really good environment. And now I'm like, I'm underpaid. I know what I should be making, and I
Mhm.
am not working 80 hours a week anymore. And it was literally just that culture shift.
Mm. Why do you think upper management doesn't see that? Because again, I feel like we have parallel stories here. The same thing happened at my company where it's just person after person after person after person is leaving, and nobody takes a minute to say, why is that? Why is everybody leaving? They just leave the people in place that are making the bad decisions and creating the uncomfortable or unworkable environments. Why is that? And I don't know that I have an answer, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, maybe speak on my situation.
Mhm.
I know that this person was very he's a good manipulator. So, like, that's the
Okay,
thing. Like, I
right.
think that he all these so, like, our owner, CEO, is a dreamer. Like, he loves ideas, and, like, he's like, "You give me a good idea." Like, "Yeah." And so, like, I, again, think he knows this and
Mhm.
feeding him all of this stuff and then being
Right.
like, I know you really thought Jen was the person, but like she's really screwing up. Like this is what she's doing wrong and she messed this up." And I think that it's the sabotaging
Mhm.
part of it in my situation. I
Right.
also think that managers and like your upper, leadership teams, sometimes they don't want to see it because they don't want to deal with it. Like maybe they don't like confrontation, and this is what irritates the crap out of me is that I know a lot of people, especially in management, that don't like confrontation. Well, I'm sorry, but you're in management.
Right.
That's part of your job, and it shouldn't have a negative connotation. Like, let's deal with
Right.
it and move on from it.
Mhm.
But I've seen that way too many times where it's just like, oh, we're just going to stick our head in the sand for it. And I'm like, this is going to be a bigger issue. I'm telling you now. No, no, no. Like, case in point, when I was on the Special Olympics doing the torch relay, I had said the person they hired as my assistant, I was like, not a good look. I'm telling you, there's going to be issues. And they're like, oh, well, it's just because you two are females and you're both strong personalities. I was like, nope, nope, has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with it. And they're like, she wouldn't listen to me. Like she did not like me. She would not take direction. I mean, she would snapped at me, and I was like, guys, if we continue down this path and she goes out on the road, it's going to be disastrous.
Mhm.
Nope, nope. Jen, I think you need to learn how to get along with her. Okay. Special Olympics almost got sued. I'm not even kidding.
What?
Oh, she made up this huge lie about that literally that like one of the VPs, and like it was they had to fly people out. They had to fire her in the middle of this, and I was like,
You're like,
but you know what? I don't get along with people very well.
right. It was
So
all
like,
me.
and I think that that's part of it is that and again, we tend to put people in leadership positions that don't deserve it. And it's because either, their resume looks really good,
Mhm.
or, they've been at the company for 5 years. So it's just the natural course of operations. It's like, no, it isn't. I'm sorry. But
Right.
like if you don't have leadership skills, if you don't have communication skills, if you can't mentor a team, because it's not even just manage the team, it's mentoring them and helping them and raising them up as well, then like, no, you shouldn't be in that position. I don't care that you've been at this company for 7 years. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest things that I've run into in my career is that like people get promoted because they've been at a company for so long. And I'm like, but they what? Okay. So I think that's also part of it. And yeah, people just don't like to they don't want to deal with conflict. They're just like, okay, well, just, you know what? If somebody's that unhappy, they'll just leave and then we'll just bring in new. I think that they think that course of action is easier. However, I've also done the research on this. In order to replace a person, it costs a company an average of $8,000. So like at the end of the cycle, like how much
Mhm.
money are you actually wasting because you're losing people
Right.
because you refuse to deal with
Mhm.
confrontation and conflict. That's my opinion.
I love what you said too about the resume because I feel like there's a lot less like references and resume checking
Oh yeah.
nowadays. Because it's interesting. My toxic person, they claimed to have come from this one organization and had been there forever and ever, and either said directly or implied that, this is where they'd been for whatever, 25 years and blah, blah, blah. And later, a couple of us, and it was all on LinkedIn, so our dumbasses could have looked. But she had worked for that organization, but that ended like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and she'd been a job hopper since then. And it's like, interesting, what do you
Mhm.
think made that happen? But I think, people nowadays just put whatever on their resume and nobody actually checks.
I think
So
you're especially in our industry, like the event
mhm.
world, I think that is notorious, which is weird because it's like it's actually a fairly small like I mean
Right.
somebody will mention something, I'll be like, "Yeah, man, I worked with that person like 5 years ago." And they
Yes.
were like,
We all
"Oh,
know each other.
we all do." Like that's what I don't understand, but I think you're right. I
Yeah.
think it's uh they just they don't check or,
Mhm.
or they, or
They don't.
you're so desperate that you're just like this person
Yes.
said the right things and you know what? They okay, let's go. Um yeah, I would uh I have to speak a little bit more vaguely on this
Mhm.
because I'm still associated with the situation.
Right.
Um and this person is also a lawyer. So yeah,
Which
I think that there's also a lot of things in that situation, kind of like we were talking about, like the job hopping, and it's like,
yep, yep.
that to me was a why would you stop doing that?
Yes. Yes.
But you know, I truly believe, especially people that are that toxic. I mean, it
Mhm.
sucks because they leave carnage. I mean,
Right.
like literally, and that's what happened. Like I was part of that carnage, and so was my, my coordinator.
Mhm.
And I like it broke my heart. I mean, like it's more so for her than for me because like I knew for myself, like, look, man, I got enough connections. Like if I lose my job today, it's gonna suck, but like I'll figure something
You're fine.
out.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna read something because she and I still talk regularly, and
Mhm.
so she sent me this last Thursday. It says, "So, one, I got the job. Thank you so much for your help. And today was my first day, and it made me miss you so much. It was really good, but not the same." And I don't think she realized to me like how much that meant because like I truly felt like a failure, like going through this whole process. Cause like, again, I made a decision to leave a company that I loved and a job that I loved for something that I
Right.
thought was going to be my career and something that
Right.
I believed in and was like, oh, this is great. It's a great place for me to grow and for me to help and lead. And, I saw it more as an opportunity more than where I was previously. But it's not like I left my current job because I hated it, because I did it.
Right.
And it was a
Right.
really hard decision to make. And, you know, being able to like feel like, okay, you know what, I did do something good. Like I created this relationship and I helped this woman who never worked in the event world now
Mhm.
fall in love with it. And like so that's what she's doing. She's working in production at another company.
That's awesome.
And so like there are those little pockets and those little moments that I'm trying to hold on to from this situation. If there's anything that I've learned and like, I think um, that's the biggest thing. Like taking this as a lesson and like now recognizing like, okay, I saw the signs. I saw okay, if I ever like get in that position again, like hopefully I would recognize it sooner than I did. And
Mhm.
not that I didn't recognize it very quickly because I feel like I did. But, again, moving forward, like looking at this, and I actually wrote something down I wanted to say. It says, every problem, every trial, hardship, and circumstance we face has a hidden doorway to an opportunity and promise connected to your purpose that you would never gain access to without the circumstances that you didn't know you needed to catapult you through. So I've been kind of like holding on to that with this situation because, like, again, I probably wouldn't be I would have never looked into like launching a YouTube channel or,
Mhm.
so like there are good things that came from this. And that's kind of what I'm trying to hold on to. Cause like it's easy to get caught up in the negative and the playing the victim. Like, oh, because I was like, I am not gonna lie, like I was definitely victimized. Like it 100% was. But, you know, okay, what did I learn from this? And how can I help other people, in my situation and learn from my experience and or give them the confidence or the power to be like, all right, yeah, I recognize this and it's not going to change. So I need to change or I need to move on from this. I definitely try to, I mean, always go to HR, like for sure. I'm not saying that HR will always have your back and will, because they won't.
They won't.
But it needs to be documented
You
because
gotta do
I
it,
think
yeah.
you have to do it because I think eventually, like maybe it's not your story, but guess what? It's happening to other people and they're not speaking up about it. And that's something I learned from this too, starting to talk about it more with my coworkers. They're like, oh, I had that experience too. And I'm like, say something, please. Because like I'm being labeled as the crazy person that, well, we just didn't get along very well. It's our personalities. But like, if I'm not the only person, like, okay, so this isn't a me problem. This is
Right,
a you problem.
right, right, and
So,
I love that you said that, and yes, so always, always, always go to HR. Never, never, never expect them to have your back, I think is the best advice, Don't go in there thinking or expecting things to change,
yeah.
but do it because you might while it might not help you, it might help somebody else down the line.
Hmm.
I wanna close out, because I think, your what you wrote, that passage was so amazing, and there's more things I wanna say, but I wanna end it there because I think that was so beautiful and so true, and for people who are in a situation that, feels miserable, know that you are gaining something and it is leading you to where you're meant to be, so always keep that in mind. Jen, before I let you go, of course, of course, of course, we're
Of
gonna talk
course.
about tattoos, and, I mean, it's fun with you, but then it's kinda not because it hasn't
Wow.
been 7 years since our last episode, so you probably haven't gotten a new tattoo. Are you any closer? Ooh,
Yes.
okay, okay,
So like
let's finish
I
it
got
up.
two now. I got two
Okay.
two in the head. And like I said, I was waiting for
Yep,
the healing and
yep,
the gut
yep.
healing. Um, so I Well, this is another idea that I have for business. And okay, so I've this has been placed on my heart recently, and there's just so many hurting women out there, and especially in the single realm, but like just women in general. And like I just had this vision of this purple rose and ashes. And I want like beauty for ashes. Like I want that. So I'm gonna do. I want something along those lines. And I'm still playing around with this whole um, like the Crohn's ribbon and like tying that into like God is greater than my Crohn's. Like I want to play around with that. So I need to work with an artist on that one. But like I've got two ideas that are probably at least one of them is going to happen in 2024. I do know
Yes,
that. So we're getting,
yes.
yes. So we're not doing 7 years. I'm telling you, look,
What color is your ribbon? Like, what
purple,
color is purple? Okay,
purple. It's a purple
nice.
ribbon.
At least you have a good color, and I have a good color for my disease. Mine is teal, so
Okay.
I also got
Okay. Yeah. So like that's kind of want to do. So I kind of want to do like the G and then turn
Mhm.
the ribbon on the side so it looks like it's
Love it.
greater than, that whole the God
Yes.
is bigger than the mountains and the so like that's the concept that I want, but I just want it to be a little bit prettier. So but yeah, so I'm playing around with that idea. And then
Okay.
I really like this whole like I feel like this journey that I've been on recently too about like the healing and everything, like it really is like you do come, like, there is beauty from ashes, like literally, like you
Yes.
come from this horrible thing that happened, but you know what? Like you again, you took the good out of it and you found a purpose out of it, and that's the beauty of it.
It
So
reminds me so much of kintsugi, which is the Japanese, art
okay,
where they take something that broke, like a vase or a
Oh, I know
bowl.
what you're talking about. I just didn't know the term of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then they put it back together and they use this gold flaked glue. And so then when they put it back together, they say, it's more beautiful and stronger than it was in its original form. So I love what you're saying. It reminds me a lot of that.
Let me show
Then
you.
where can people find you? So if they want to check out your new YouTube channel, if they want to follow you on the Soch and see what you got going on there, or, if they want to know when the tattoo in 2024 is happening and want to be a part of that, where can they find you?
Yeah, okay. So my YouTube channel is Valkyrie Defense. So that's all military equipment and tech, and it's fun. So please go subscribe and watch our cool videos. And then on socials, I'm mainly on Instagram. So my personal or my personal professional account is DAABEERS. So Da Beers. And then my photography one is just Jenn DeBeers photography. And those are the two that I'm mainly on. And the tattoo would be on the Da Beers one. And then, all the photography like this are all on are on the photography Instagram page.
Nice. Well, Jen, as usual, you have been amazing. I appreciate our time together. And I'm going to go ahead and let the audience know that we have at least 2 more episodes coming. So
Yes.
you will see so much more of Jen in the next several months. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I adore you. So I'm so glad we get to spend time together.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media so you'll never miss what's going on. Remember, until next week, you are strong enough, you are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.